Please remember that cardiac muscles and smooth muscles are not considered part of the muscular system. Only skeletal muscles are. I do want to briefly go over cardiac muscle and smooth muscle, just to fill out your knowledge of them before we get to the systems that are associated with those in the next term. You'll remember that cardiac muscles are striated. You will remember that cells will also branch. They are usually uninucleated. In other words, they have one nucleus. The endomysium of cardiac muscle is actually going to be attached to a fibrous skeleton within the heart. The sarcoplasmic reticulum, there we go, is less elaborate and less extensive than the one you'll find associated with skeletal muscle. We know that intercalated discs are going to be points of attachment in between those branching cells. They will also help provide support and structure for the cardiac tissue. They will contain gap junctions, which are going to be crucial when you are talking about getting those cells to act as a unit, what's known as autorhythmicity. Where do we get calcium for cardiac muscle cells? Because they are striated, they contract in a sliding filament theory-like method. Remember that the sliding filament theory is still a theory, hence the term theory associated with that name. For cardiac muscles, the calcium actually comes not only from the sarcoplasmic reticulum, but it is also going to flood into the cell from the extracellular fluid. Different neurotransmitters, you'll have acetylcholine and norepinephrine. And also, cardiac muscles are dependent on anaerobic respiration. You do not want cardiac muscle cells going into anaerobic respiration, because if you do, that tissue is dying and you are going to have severe health problems. Cardiac muscle cells, and I repeat that, are highly dependent on aerobic respiration. We're going to switch gears a little bit and talk about smooth muscle. There are two types, the multi-unit smooth muscle and the visceral smooth muscle. The multi-unit smooth muscle, the cells are going to be relatively disorganized, and you can see that in the diagram, the picture on the right. The fibers are going to function independently. You will find them in the irises as well as in the walls of blood vessels. They will be stimulated by both the nervous system and the endocrine system, which will secrete hormones. The contractions are quite similar to skeletal muscle because they are rapid and they are vigorous. There will be way more visceral smooth muscle in the body than the multi-unit smooth muscle. So yes, indeed, it's the most common smooth muscle. You have single unit smooth muscle cells, and they're going to be sheets and sheets of spindle-shaped cells that we talked about. You will find them in the walls of hollow organs, so the small intestine, the large intestine, the stomach, the esophagus, the ureters, the urinary bladder, the urethra. The contractions of these muscles are slow and sustained. Think peristalsis. The contraction mechanism will be slightly different than the striated muscles because you do not have troponin, you have what is known as calmodulin. So calmodulin is going to be the myofilament that's going to attach to the calcium ions. There will be a less developed and a smaller amount of sarcoplasmic reticulum because the calcium is going to diffuse into the cell from the extracellular fluid. Same neurotransmitters as cardiac muscle cell, norepinephrine and acetylcholine. And we know that the contraction of smooth muscle in general is going to be slow and sustained.